Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, 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 welcome. Cha. Oh, my bad. I know that was probably scary. As you see, this is for the Mercury retrograde. We got one coming up. I know. Everyone's like, why do we always talk about these damn things? Didn't we just have one? And you're right. They seem to happen pretty quickly. There's normally 4 of them per year. So, or I should say 3 of them per year, but it could feel like a hell of a lot more because of the shadow zones or the do-over zones or the retrograde zone and its shadow, basically. So this chart here is the dates for the Mercury retrograde and the location and degree, August 5th to August 28th. Okay? It happens in Leo and Virgo. Now remember, we're talking about a retrograde, which is when a planet moves backwards. So when a planet has the appearance of moving backwards, and we're not going to go any further than that because it gets too complicated, even though it's kind of not, but yet it is. The retrograde motion is when the planet Mercury gets to 4 degrees and 6 minutes of Virgo, and then it goes back to 21-24 in Leo. So the retrograde in Mercury begins at 4 degrees and 6 minutes in Virgo and goes back all the way to Leo at 21-24. That is where it stands still and then starts to go direct, starts to go forward. So it begins its retrograde in Virgo right there, and then it goes all the way back to Leo. Now, for those of you who are experienced, you know that there's things called a shadow zone. And the shadow zone would begin the very first time Mercury is in Leo at 21 degrees and 24 minutes. And then it travels all the way to Virgo. So even though it hasn't begun retrograding yet, it's that shadow zone area. It's something that we're rereading, redoing, retraveling to something familiar, someplace we've already been. It's a rerun, it's a redo, it's a do-over that they say. It can be slowdowns, especially with traveling and traffic, but even our mind and in learning sometimes, because it might seem tricky. You know, we might kind of get like, well, I've got all of a sudden all these options, and I might feel like, oh my God, I can't make a decision. There's too many choices. And so we always pay attention to that shadow zone area. And so when it comes to the shadow zone area, the degrees are always going to be the same. It's the dates that are going to be the thing that we're going to pay attention to. Okay. So Mercury goes back to Leo at 21-24. At that time, in that retrograde, right? Got to Virgo, begins the retrograde, goes backwards. It stops. You see that? That's when the retrograde ends. That's when Mercury stops going backwards. So what happens at that point when it no longer goes backwards? It's now moving forward. It's moving direct now, okay? And goes forward. Here it is on here. You can see the degrees. 4 degrees, 6 minutes, back to Leo at 21-24. And so this area is kind of colored in and highlighted there, because when we back it up, we want to be able to see the angles and the aspects. They're going to send a semi-sextile 30 degrees away. That's the symbol for the semi-sextile. See that sideways looking K? Although it's actually, anyway, we'll just leave it at that for right now. So it's going to be the same degrees, but just in the next sign up, 30 degrees away. So between 21 and 24, we're just going to say 21 degrees of Leo to 4 degrees of Virgo. The sextile then is going to be 21 degrees of Virgo to 4 degrees of Libra. You see, that's the sextile. Something happens with relative ease. I don't have to do a whole lot for this thing to happen. That's the semi-sextile, 30 degrees away. The other semi-sextiles the other way, the 30 degrees going the other way. I know people might be like, what the hell? Yeah. It goes to the left and it goes to the right because we're working with a circle. We're working with 360 degrees. So it's Cancer energy, 21 degrees of Cancer to 4 degrees of Leo. That's the semi-sextile. So they're showing semi-sextile in green. Then we got the sextile. 60 degrees away, same degrees, 60 degrees away. Let's back that up a little bit. You see? And that would be Gemini. Sextile energy it kind of happens with a little ease. There's a little bit less effort required. It's kind of like the semi-sextile, but it's even a little bit easier, whatever this thing is that's going to happen for you in your life. And in these degrees in your chart, Gemini energy, 21 degrees to 4 degrees of Cancer. We're going to go and look at, we got Libra here. So 21 degrees of Libra to 4 degrees of Scorpio. After we sextile the square, this is 90 degrees away. 90-degree angle is a square. Stress and tension. It creates stress and tension. That's why you see it in red. Okay. So with a little bit of ease, a little bit more ease, and then we have a square. Stress and tension. I really got to work at it. Instead of just doing a half a step or 1 or 2 steps, I got to really put forward some effort to make this thing happen. I met with a little bit of resistance, a stop sign, maybe even a roadblock, and I got to figure out the workarounds. Okay. So that means that for Scorpio energy at the 21 degree mark, Scorpio at 21 degree, this is me, 21 degrees, not me that I'm Scorpio, but I have things, 21 degrees to 4 degrees of Saggy. That's the angles, that's the square. We go to look at the square the other way for this Mercury retrograde, and it's Taurus. That's me. Yeah, I have stuff in Scorpio and Taurus. So same degrees, 21 degrees of Taurus, 4 degrees of Gemini. That creates a stress and a tension with that square. That's the angle that gets thrown. And then we have a trine. Trine is it easily happens. I don't really have to do much. It just kind of works out. It just kind of fell in place. You know how that happens sometimes, right? This is 21 degree of the fire signs, 21 degrees of Aries to 4 degrees of Taurus. The ease, the trine energy, 21 degrees of Aries to 4 degrees of Taurus. That's the trine. Now there's another trine because there's going to be 2 because we got 12 signs in the chart. We're going to go and look the other way at the other trine. And the other trine, fire signs again, 21 degrees of Saggy, 4 degrees of Capricorn. That's the trine for this Mercury retrograde. It easily happens. Something just kind of falls into place. What I will add here is the galactic center will be part of this because the galactic center sits at 27 degrees of Sagittarius. It's usually a point of need in the chart. And because it's Saggy, that's beliefs, that's freedom, it's truths, the judicial system, literally the courtroom, the judges, but it's also like over there on Capitol Hill in the legislative branch where they're writing bills and trying to pass them and make them into laws, right? So those are trine energy. I've been dealing with my mom and I'm half baked right now without using any drugs. And then you can go to the quincunx energy. So quincunx would be the same degrees. It's in Capricorn at 21 to 4 degrees of Aquarius. And this is important here. This is very important just because I know that Pluto is sitting right there. It's still in Aquarius. It might even, it's still at 1 degree, but it's getting really low. It's almost getting to 0 degrees. All right. So Pluto is sitting right there. And that means that Mercury is going to be doing, during its retrograde, Mercury is going to be having contact 3 times with Pluto. There will be communications with Pluto 3 times. And this will be important because it's information, but when it connects with Pluto, it's stuff that was buried deep, stuff that was hidden, something that was old. This can be people in power, the past, something happened from the past, talking about somebody of power who used to hold a position of power, possibly. It could be people who are currently still in power, but it's about a past, likely something, a past event of some sort. Okay. And so Mercury in that quincunx with Pluto, we're getting a whole shitload of details because Pluto can unearth like none other. It can show you stuff that you just had no idea existed. And that's Pluto's job. And that's a quincunx. So it's an irritation and agitation. It's a little bit uncomfortable. Then there's the opposition to the Mercury retrograde. And that opposition is going to be Aquarius energy at 21 degrees. This will be for me as well. I got stuff here. At 21 degrees in Aquarius to the 4 degrees of Pisces. Okay, so knowing and seeing those aspects, seeing that this is where this happens and where do these areas line up in my chart? These degrees and in these signs. Is there a house cuspine you have there? Is there a planet? There can be asteroids, right? There can be a fixed star. That tells you where there might be something in your life where you're coming across more information, where you have more options, where you might even have to make a decision and be like, oh, damn, I don't know what to do because I have a lot of options. That's usually how that works, especially if you have planets at these points or any one of the points. Obviously, the more points in each of the signs that match up, the bigger of a deal this is going to be for you in your life. You know, if somebody's got something here and here and here and here, you see what I mean? If it goes, the more there are, the bigger of a deal it ends up being. And then the more, yeah, definitely interesting. And we think of Mercury about information and learning and speaking, and Mercury can be traveling, right? But it is social media. Let's remember that about Mercury. It is social media. So it's online stuff too. It's the markets, it's business, it's trade, it's sales. Think of coworkers and siblings. Think of housemates. Think of school children. Think of school teachers, right? What are we selling? Are we selling information, right? Mercury wants options. It's the discussion about what sort of information are we looking at. It's, again, the challenge of using social media as a news source. Folks, yeah, I know a lot of people have different social sites that they love, but you know, just understand you've got certain people in politics who would rather do this so they can have a fiery social media post and get a whole lot of views, right? And so just realize it's not news. It's simply views. It's not really quality news. Sometimes things are being said, especially whether it's taken out of context, twisted, whatever the hell it is, right? So try to just pay attention because Mercury is all about the news and the way that we consume our information. It's your mind. It's my mind. It's how we learn. Do I have a slow mind? Am I a fast learner? Everybody's different. And so Mercury retrogrades tend to create a little bit of a complicated time because it's also, other than social media, it's our devices. It's your phone. It's talking on the phone. It's text messages, snail mail, emails. It's however you communicate, period. The forms of communication, the forms that you do use to share information. Do you just sit down and talk with people? Or is everything like this? Because this is Mercury. Is everything about this for you? Right? And this can be tricky. How many times have you sent a text message, accidentally hit the send button? Oh my God, that was to the wrong person. How many times have you left a comment or whatever, and there was the spell check thing and it was just completely wrong. It didn't get across what you meant to say because it changed it, or you said what you said, yet somebody else read that very same thing and said, oh, I thought you meant this. I get that a lot. So there's that in there. And that's why we always say Mercury can be a trickster. And, some people take it to another level and they are deliberately misleading, deliberately twisting information. And then there are times when it's really not deliberately done. It really is a, oh shit moment where I messed up. No matter how many times I talk about a retrograde, I always get questions. So this chart will clear up hopefully a little bit of the confusion. July 17th. On July 17th, this is the first time that Mercury reaches the degrees of 2124, and that's in Leo. So on July 17th, Mercury gets to 2124. Are you with me? Yeah. And Mercury keeps going forward. It goes into Virgo now. So here we are. It's August 5th, and Mercury is going to begin a retrograde. Now, if you look closely, you see how they have like this line that goes across from here to there. And some would say, well, no shit, because they got to begin the retrograde. They got to show you how it goes backwards. But it is also to show you that Mercury stands still August 5th, and the degree, 4 degrees and 6 minutes. That will be sensitive. That will be a sensitive point, 4 degrees and 6 minutes. See if you have something in your chart to see where that angles up for you. Then Mercury, at that 4 degrees and 6 minutes on August 5th, it goes backwards. It retrogrades. This is where the retrograde begins. It goes backwards to 21 degrees again and stops at 21 degrees and 24 minutes. You follow? We look at the date on that. It's August 28th. And it's the same thing. Mercury slows down and kind of sits there, right? So the 21 degrees and 24 minutes is another very sensitive point on the chart because the planet has to slow down, stand still, and reverse direction. Mercury stands still and then says, I'm moving forward again. But at this point, Mercury changes and it starts to go forward. It moves direct. And it reaches the same degree that it touched before on August 5th. Here we are on September 11th. It gets to 4 degrees and 6 minutes. These degrees, 2124 and 406, Mercury touches these degrees 3 times. You're in the car. You're driving along. You already drove past the point. You're like, oh, shit, we dropped something out the window. So we back up, right? We back all the way up. We put the car in park. We get out of the car. We run forward a couple of steps. We pick up what we thought we lost, whatever fell out the window. We grab it. We get back in the car, and then we drive forward again. Mercury goes back to retrieve a piece of information, something, a conversation, that other clue before it's going to make a decision. Pay attention to when Mercury first gets to 21 degrees and 41 minutes. That's when it enters the shadow zone. That's when it enters this area. It's not just about the retrograde itself. The shadow zone stuff begins on July 17th. And we do not clear the shadow zone until September 11th. You follow? So the effects of this Mercury retrograde go from July 17th to September 11th. Okay? The redo zone, we're collecting information. Something is talked about. You hear something in the news. You hear something from a coworker or a sibling. And it might be something that either you feel like, oh my God, is that true? Or you have options and you're like, gosh, I don't know what to do. If you can, delay after September 11th, Mercury's out of the shadow zone. Mercury has cleared it. Hope this helps. You got questions, comment below, and I appreciate your time. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.